My name is Robert Bell III. I went to 3 different film schools. I went to Columbia College Chicago for 2 years. Then I went to Temple University for a year. And I finally finished up at Columbia College Hollywood, where I graduated last spring or last summer. My course of study was film, and at all 3 schools, they call it something different, the major at every school. But Columbia College Hollywood is strictly a film school, and my concentration was screenwriting, so my degree is, I have a BFA in writing for cinema. I'm definitely more of a writer, and my backbone in the film industry is writing. It's what I've studied the most. That's what I've taken most of my classes in. I like to think that writing is where the filmmaking process starts. You know, you can't do anything without a script, and I pride myself on, you know, being a part of that. But I think every writer gets to a point where eventually they go into directing, because you eventually want to see the vision that you wrote come to life in the way that you imagined it. And sometimes when you write something and it gets in the hands of other people, you know, they reinterpret it into their vision. And even good writers, well, good writing period is writing visually, so, you know, you're almost directing when you write anyway. So I think, you know, they go hand in hand, but I like to think of myself as a writer first and more of a director second. Film just seemed like the natural thing for me to do when I got out of high school. There's a lot of other things I thought about doing, but they were all money motivated. You know, thinking about going to school for business, thinking about going to school for sports management. You know, were all decisions that I was going to make based on, okay, I kind of like this and it makes me a lot of money. You know, I got to a point blank when I went to film school that this wasn't the business to get into if you wanted to make money. And that was a hard decision to, you know, ask for loans and ask for the help of my parents and people to help me to go to school for something that not necessarily was going to make me a lot of money in the first couple of years that I got out of school. So I took a leap of faith, and at the end of the day, it's what I love to do. I love to tell stories, and I think filmmaking is the ultimate artistic medium because it combines everything that I love about art: music, writing, acting, photography, costumes. I think every aspect of art comes together to create film, and I think that's the ultimate stage to showcase your visions and your ideas. So I fell in love with it at a young age, and once I figured out it was, you know, a career path and something I could go to school for and master and learn, then I was all in. Kind of biased because I'm from Philadelphia, and I grew up here, and I spent most of my adult life here, all of my childhood here, pretty much. And Philly is a rough city. You know, people who stay here too long tend to develop ill feelings towards it, but I've never seen it in that way. For all its ruggedness and, you know, tough-minded people, and you know, I always feel like Philly is in between DC and New York. So, you know, people grow up here feeling like, people grow up here with a chip on their shoulder, and they definitely feel like they have to prove something. And I think that, you know, can give a person with an artistic vision a motivation to go out there and want to show that, hey, I'm from Philly, and, you know, this is what we make, you know, whether it be the art or just the hustle that you show. So I definitely think Philly gave me the hustle that I needed to be in an industry that's so competitive. Chicago is probably the most beautiful city I've been in America, for sure. Super inspiring. I loved my 2 years there. I was fortunate enough to live downtown. I had very fond memories of the city, and, you know, it's just one of those cities that, you know, from the architecture to the people to the culture, it's a very inspiring city. So I love Chicago. I call it my second home. I might end up living there one day if I can convince somebody to come with me and bear through the winters. But, you know, Chicago's an awesome city. LA is different. It's different than any other place I've ever been. It is very shiny. It can be intimidating for a young artist or a young person, period, because you know there's so much glitz and glamour all around you. You know, that's where Hollywood is. That's where people's dreams come true. So every year, a bunch of people flock to LA from other places around the country in the hopes of making it. I consider myself a filmmaker first and foremost. I definitely, at one point, I definitely don't want to be locked into, you know, making black films or being a black filmmaker. But by the same token, I do think I have a responsibility to tell black stories. One of my problems with the industry is a lot of our stories are told by, you know, people who aren't black. And not that I have a problem with those people, you know what I mean, because, you know, if I were to say that, then I could say, well, I can't write for women because I'm not a woman, or I'm not a woman, or I can't write for a homosexual person because I'm not a homosexual. I'm not saying that at all, but I do think that there's a certain authenticity that's missing in black films as a whole. You know, I do think it's getting better, but I would definitely, you know, I want to be considered as a filmmaker who makes authentic films about what he knows, and what I know is black people, black culture. So, I consider myself just a filmmaker. You know, I feel like I can write a story about anybody and anything, but at the same time, I do feel like I have a responsibility to tell our stories first. Absolutely. Hoop is a story that I've wanted to do since I was about 17, 18 years old, and I've written different variations of it, but it's always been at the core about a kid who's in love with basketball. And at the end of the day, it's a love story about a kid who's been neglected his whole life and hasn't been shown a lot of love from the people who created him. And he falls in love with basketball. And the situation comes to a head where basketball has the opportunity to take him farther than where he is right now, in the form of making a very prestigious AAU team. So the film is centered around this very intense 3-day tryout where, you know, this kid basically feels like his future is on the line whether or not he makes this team. It's a very simple story. Like I said, it's literally about a kid trying to make a basketball team, but the overall theme is a film about, you know, being in love with something and never giving up on it, which is, I think, an important message for anybody who's ever loved something or wanted to be a part of something. The inspiration for it for me was my own personal story growing up with basketball. You know, I was that kid who fell in love with basketball at a young age and saw it as my future at one point, and had to come to terms with the fact that it might not be my future. And when I came to that point, I decided to quit the basketball team, which is something that I regret to this day. One of the only things I regret that I've done in my life. You know, I was young and I took it in an emotional fashion, but I've always told myself that, you know, I kind of owe the game, you know. In this film, and telling the story is a way of me kind of giving back. You know, I see a lot of myself in hoop, but I see a lot of people I grew up with in hoop. And the fact that, you know, when you come from, and by no means was I neglected as a kid or came from a dire situation, but so many people around me did. And just knowing how much the game can mean to a kid at that age, I just really wanted to dive deep into that feeling and that emotion. You know, people always say, why aren't there more black directors, black writers, you know, people in those positions? You know, diversity is the hot button issue in the industry right now. And a lot of people can point to the problem and say, well, there aren't enough people in positions to make the black stories. Well, this is an opportunity to, you know, help one of these stories come to fruition. And, you know, your son or your daughter or your cousin or nephew might want to think about filmmaking, but they don't see enough examples of it, or they don't see how it can be done. And this is going to be an example of it. So I think that, you know, donating the money to make the film happen, I think goes farther than just giving money to make the production happen. I think it really speaks to, you know, really promoting something that's positive as far as another outlet for an example of what can be done when people come together. So, you know, I'm excited that we got the dollar amount that we have. I'm sure we're going to be getting more coming in, and, you know, I just want people to really know that their money is appreciated. It's going to be spent well, and at the end of the day, you know, they're going to be a part of, you know, something magical. You know, if you know, if you could go back in time and Spike Lee had a GoFundMe for his first film, and you can say that you helped contribute to be a part of that, I'm pretty sure you would, you know, want to do that. Not to say that, you know, I'm Spike Lee or anything, but hopefully I've expressed the passion and the vision behind this project, and the fact that, you know, actors are working for next to nothing. The crew is working for next to nothing. Me, myself, working for nothing. You know what I mean? Everybody is invested into this project because of the love of the story, of the people behind it, and just the craft of filmmaking, period. So if that's something that you're into and you feel compelled to donate, then it would be highly appreciated. And, you know, hopefully we can make this thing happen and pull it off.